So, all right. So getting into increasing cash flow, and this is where, and I'll just toggle back here a little bit to so you can kind of see the notes as well as we go. Okay. So we're already into step one, and so when you're in step one, this is the phrase I would use. So just look at this phrase here. Tell me about your compensation package at work. So versus how much money do you make? I just think that's such a nicer way to ask that question. Because some people make hourly wage, some people are getting salary. So let them then explain what they make, right? And then do you have a budget? And are you comfortable with your budget? Because not all the time would I necessarily go through all of their the minutia of their bills. Okay. That might be a homework assignment I would send them, actually. Okay. I would say, here's a homework assignment for Ed. I leave with that homework assignment where I just email them the worksheet from a Heartland class or from a workshop class. Okay. If they struggle with that. So do you have a budget? More importantly, do you stick to your budget? Okay. So if someone says, yeah, we're real confident in our budget, and they have everything on a spreadsheet already, and they use QuickBooks, and they're really on top of their stuff, you probably don't have to go through that with them too much. Right. But if they don't, they're like, yeah, I think we do. I think we kind of, okay. So you got to already know what their income is, right? Because they just told you. So do you stick to your budget? Right. And so, and if they say, yeah, we stick to a budget, or, we kind of have a good idea of what we're spending every month. Say, well, here's the big question then. You make $110,000, for example, combined. How much money is left over at the end of the month after your expenses are paid? Right. So whatever they say, if it's zero, or we don't have really much left, then you say, well, there's a lot of people out there just like you, and I think we could probably help you find some ways, some cost-saving ways, to budget yourself a little bit. And that's where you could really go through a budget, because you need to uncover some lazy money, right? So what's falling through the holes in the bottom of their bucket. I explained, hey, it's hard to fill up a bucket if there's holes at the bottom of it. So we have to identify where there could be some lazy money there, right? And that's what we're going to help you work through. Now, if there's someone like more the confident person of knowing what they have, yeah, we have $500 every month. Okay. So now you verify whatever they say. That's a dollar amount that they feel that they have extra every month to put away. You want to verify that. And the way you do that is just asking. So just what you're saying is, after all your expenses are paid, you have $500 at the end of the month. Yes. So you're saying your checking account grows every month by about $500 every month. Is that right? Yeah, that's about right. Okay. So that $500 is what you have then to put towards those goals we just talked about. Correct? Okay, good. So you're verifying that is in fact the number. And then you're also kind of at the same time tying that number into a dollar amount that they can put towards their goals, which you just talked about, all their goals. That's why it's so important to talk about their goals, so they can be thinking at a higher level in their mind. Then, you're talking to their heart, actually, not their mind, right? You're talking to their heart. When you get into the budget, that's when you're talking to their brain. But the goals are the heart. So the heart wants them to save more. The brain says, I want to spend the money, right? So, or be lazy about it. So that's how we will pull out that dollar amount. Okay. Step two then is the debt part. And then you could say something about the house. Say it's a beautiful house you have here. What do you think the value of it is? Okay. Do you have a balance on that house? When's the last time you refinance recently? So you find out a little bit about that. Credit card debt. If that's one of their main concerns, well, again, whatever their concerns are in this form here, right? I mean, in this section, the goals and dreams, whatever the things that are most important to them, that's kind of how you want to tailor your collect as well. So if it's debt management, now you mentioned you had some credit card issues, and that was something that was really important to you. Do you have any, how much credit card debt you have? How much, you know what that number is? Sometimes they know, a lot of times they have to really figure it out. And even worse yet, so they don't have the dollar amount, the whole amount, but then they have it over many credit cards. And then that's when you have to break out, maybe in the notes section. Okay, could be a homework assignment, depending how messy it is, right? So anything that they can't have there ready for you is like a homework assignment that you need to get back in your hands before you meet again, right? But what I would say is that might have been something that the trainee would have verified prior to the appointment. Like, hey, make sure you have maybe they already knew that was an issue, right? So have those statements available. Anything you want them to take a look at, have it available for you. So that's maybe prepared a little bit. But you want to know what I go through. I'm pretty detailed about this because I think I can make a big impact in this area for someone in terms of recommendations, just with that debt roll-up strategy, right? Most people, do you think that they pay their credit cards in the debt roll-up method, or they just kind of catch as catch can, right? They're just paying, equal amounts to all the cards. That's almost always the case, what I see. They don't have any deference to how much interest each card is charging them. So you want to really know those rates that they're being charged, if that's the case, okay? And this is a lot of times someone who's in the accumulation stage, right? If someone's got this closer to retirement, they really have a problem, right? But this will also add a lot of value for you as an advisor, that you're really going through and they see that you're taking the time to really go one by one, and it shows care. It shows that you really want to help them, not just sell them. And that's so important, I think. So I go through their credit card. I'll go through the interest rates they're paying. This will all be things that I would go through. Now, let's say they have nothing. Great. This would be pretty quick if they don't have any credit card debt. Maybe they have a student loan or two. Awesome. Get the interest rates they're paying on that stuff and what their monthly payment is. Also, I would find out what their minimum payment is. They may be overpaying, for example, a loan that is maybe 4%, and underpaying one that's at 8%, right? So I would find out what their minimum payments are, they can be, and how much they're paying, what they actually are paying. So I really want to find out that information, because that'll help, again, add value to my recommendation, okay? Next part, just say, so let's shift gears here, and we're going to help you have a game plan for getting out of debt. And the next thing is, or they have no debt problem, right? You're running across all different types of people. So the next part is emergency fund. So how much would you say you have on hand in case of emergency? I have $2,000. Okay. All right. Well, what do you feel the adequacy of that? What do you feel about that? They're going to say, not too good, probably, right? And then you could share, hey, would you like to know what I feel is a good amount to have in an emergency fund? They'll probably say yes. And then you just say, hey, really you need to have somewhere between 3 and 6 months saved, either in access to cash through an equity line of credit or in a savings account, a very safe place to access the money. And the real reason for that is we're going to be talking about a plan for your financial future, so you can have enough money in retirement down the road. And so you don't want to ever sacrifice your long-term goals with a short-term need. And so you want to have an emergency fund to handle your short-term need, and your long-term investment planning to handle your long-term need. Does that make sense? And they usually get that. Okay. So then we go to ensuring proper protection. So I'm just going to, again, toggle back and forth here a little bit. So again, here we're now all the way down to, we've gone through emergency fund, we're in protection. So let's shift gears and talk a little bit about protection. Starting with life insurance, and what I would phrase this and kind of frame this for you is, what is your economic value to the home, what to this household? What is your economic value? I love that economic value is something that they probably never heard it phrased that way, but it's so true. How do you protect that economic value if something were to happen to you, right? And this is where you can get into the dime method. Okay, so you could mention here that you find out what they have first, right? So do you have any life insurance? Yeah, I've got this through work. Okay, I've got, one time my income, or, I'm not really sure how much I have through work. Homework assignment. So I'm always in the middle of the meeting. Anything that they can't find the answer to right there, I'm going to have a little separate sheet of paper that I will leave with them, which is the homework assignments. And hopefully this is actually the trainee's job. If I'm the one doing it, I'm doing it, but the trainee will have the notebook. This is something the trainee could do, is have this down and say, would you write that down as homework assignment to get that information from the HR department or from, right? So that you have this. You want to make sure you're very thorough. And so once you have that information, you know the kind and how much they're paying and all that stuff, right? Then I'd say something like, well, the industry standard is somewhere between 5 to 10 times your annual income is what they say you should have. I like to use a little bit more of a granular method called the dime method to calculate that, which, what the dime method does, and how I explain the dime method is, if you were to assign a job to your insurance policy, what would some of those jobs be? And this dime method is an acronym for death, income, mortgage, and education. Okay. And so I would want to find out what jobs you'd want to assign. If something were to happen to you, would paying off your debt, for example, it should be death and debt, right? I'll just make that change right here. So death and debt, right? Would you want this credit card paid off if something were to happen to you? Would that be a job you'd assign to your life insurance policy? I'm going to skip income for a second. If something were to happen to you, would part of your economic value being paying for this mortgage every month? Would you want the mortgage to be paid off if something were to happen? Right? Yes, most people would say yeah. Now, let's look at education. What's your stance on and helping your children with college? Now that you could open up the can of worms here, if they didn't talk about it already, they may start talking about it here, and what their position is on it. Oh, I want to help them, right? So I want to find out how much they want to help them is what I want to do. And what I'd say is, okay, so you want to help them with about $100,000, let's say. Let's say that's the number you figure you come to, right? If something were to happen to you before you're able to save that, would you want a premature death to preclude you from having that $100,000 that you wanted to save for college for them? And they're going to say probably no. You'd want to sign that as a job to your insurance policy if you could. Yes, I would. All right, so let's go to this last part, is income. So you mentioned you had one-time income at 1 year's salary available for insurance through work. So how long would that last then? 1 year, right? Now, probably your husband or probably your wife, they probably would need income for a little bit longer than 1 year, would you say? Yeah. Okay, so that's why somewhere between 5 and 10 times income in this area might be appropriate. And why we say that? Well, because you could live 10 to 15, if it's invested properly, maybe 20 years of income replacement to at least get your family out of the woods financially. Does that make sense? And so I'm always clarifying with them, does it make sense? I'm always getting their feedback. I'm looking at them and saying and nodding. And if I'm getting nodding back and I'm getting, hey, this makes sense to me, or if I get a puzzled look, I'd say, well, let's stop. Let's go back. Is there something I need to cover? Again, was there a question that you had? And I always say up front, by the way, and I'm sorry I'm jumping around a little bit, I say, if you have questions as I'm going through this, please stop me. If something is confusing, or please stop me. This is your time. I'm here to answer your questions, but here to help you, right? So you just want to make sure that you've got that humility and that humble nature about you as you're going through this process, okay? So if they look good and they're happy and they're nodding along with you, then we can keep right on going, right? We're not recommending anything yet, keep in mind. But what we are suggesting is that this would suggest that you have about, in this example, a $920,000 need, okay? Now, you may not be able to do all that, but So right now you've got $50,000 or 100, whatever their number is. Okay. Would you be able to sleep a little bit better tonight if you were able to cover more of that economic value? Yeah, that's definitely a need that we have. Yeah, we need to look into that. Okay, well, what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to crank up the computers when I get back, and we'll see if we could help you solve that problem. Does that sound good? Would you be able to sleep better with that? Yes, great. Move on. Okay, now we're talking about assets and investments. And so in going back to the form here, okay, we're in building long-term asset accumulation section. So this is where I might do a little bit of education and say, really, there's three different tax stairs that are available for us to invest our money in. So we have a taxable bucket, we have a tax deferred bucket, and we have what we call tax advantage bucket. So I'll explain a little bit about I'm not going to do that for the benefit of this call, just for time's sake, but so I explain a little bit how taxable, tax deferred, and tax advantage works. And so what I want to do is see where we have our current assets, and see if we can make sure that they're the most efficient places possible for your future. So then we get that. Just collect each thing, just run down. Now I want to find out, are they contributing to their 401k? How much? I definitely want to know what the employer match is. And why do I want to know that? I'm uncovering all the time where there's inefficiencies. If the employer is matching 6% and they're putting in 10%, but they have a credit card payment they haven't paid off, or they just aren't contributing to a Roth IRA, or they have nothing in the tax advantage bucket, or so many other things, right? I'm not going to make that suggestion now. I'm just going to have that information for my recommendation. Okay. So, because I know that, hey, the first money you want is your free money. The second money, which is the match, the second money is tax-free. The third money is tax deferred. I'm not going to necessarily share that now. That would be the recommendation, right? But I want to know what it is. So I want to get all this stuff down. And I know what they have here. This will help me later, especially if they're closer to retirement, okay? So, because there's two basic, camps of clients. You're going to draw a line in the sand and say certain people are on this side, certain people on that side. It's people in accumulation and people who are nearing retirement. If you think about just the demographics, right, of the country, there's 76 million baby boomers. So that's like almost a third of the country that is approaching or in retirement. So you're going to run across a lot of people in that situation. So some people, they don't have, or you don't have as much yet in this. So this could go really fast, or it could take a little bit of time, depending on what they've got. And the last part here is preserving your estate. So I would just say, when's the last time your will was updated? Which is assuming they have a will. And if they don't have a will, that was okay, definitely want to get a will, right? And a trust. If they own a house, you already know they own a house. What do you 100% know that you've got to offer them Legacy Shield the next time? That you just have to. And you have to let them know, look, the value of a trust and why they may want to do this. We'll talk in more detail next time. But this, if you can show them, man, this guy knows a lot of things, or this lady, this person is really here to help me with all these things. This is great. I never even thought about that, that my house needs to be in a trust and why, right? So all these are ways to, again, add value. Now, let's review what your priorities are. So we go back to the goals, and after you've done this financial data collection, you'll probably know what the priorities are. And personally, I would just say, so far, what I got is that you want to, whatever it is, get out of debt. That's number one. You want your student loan. You want to make sure you have enough money for retirement. Whatever the things that you uncovered, and even the latent needs. And we also discovered that you're probably a little short on your insurance protection to protect your economic value. Would you say this might be the right priorities? And I'll just write it. I'll just say them, and then say, yeah, that makes sense. Then I'm going to write them. As soon as I say them and they agree that this is the right priorities for me, I write them down right after that. Okay. And then you can ask here, right? This would be I save this for right after the next part